He had the means, he had the motive, and he had the opportunity. And oh yeah, he admits he did it. There is your 5-second recap of what the prosecutors spent hours telling the jurors today in the trial of Momeni, the guy accused of murdering the founder of Cash App, Bob Lee. After 6 long weeks of testimony, closing arguments are finally underway. And if you wonder what's left to argue about after everything that I just said, Momeni says he acted in self-defense when he fatally stabbed Lee on a dark street under the Bay Bridge in San Francisco a year ago, April. If you believe the defendant, Bob Lee attacked Momeni, and that Momeni is guilty of nothing. But the state, they don't believe that. They began their closing with Bob Lee's own voice from the call that he made to 911 while he was bleeding uncontrollably on the street. Momeni, on the other hand, despite having just been in a deadly knife fight, never called the police. Didn't have any injuries either. His motive, allegedly, was his glamorous, apparently out of control, and admittedly drug-addicted sister, Khazar. More specifically, his beautiful sister's honor. Yeah. As you may remember, the state claims that Momeni blamed Bob Lee for Khazar having been drugged and sexually assaulted by an acquaintance of Lee's. My next guest has been in court for all of this. Amy Larson is a reporter with our NewsNation affiliate, Cron TV, and she joins me now live. Amy, thank you so much for coming back to the show. Tell me about the moment in court when Bob Lee's voice from the 911 call was played and why it mattered.
Right. It was an emotional moment, being able to hear from the victim, Bob Lee himself, telling the jury what happened to him that night under the Bay Bridge. We heard Bob say over and over, help, 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 someone stabbed me. And the prosecutor, before he even began his closing argument, he led with that 911 call, letting Bob do the talking. The jurors are not supposed to reach a verdict based on emotion, but the jurors are also still human beings. And so I think some emotion will come into play here when they get to start their deliberation.
So let's take the emotion out of it and just go straight to the evidence. And this was, for me, really powerful. They showed and how awful it is. I'm sorry if you're squeamish, please, just turn the volume down for a minute. They showed his autopsy pictures with his clean stab wounds. And what was noticeably absent for everybody in the court who saw them was that there were no defensive wounds. There was nothing to show like there was a struggle. There was nothing to show what Momeni says happened, that there's this pitched battle and he's stabbing in self-defense. Bob's wounds just didn't seem to show that.
Right. So Bob suffered 2 stab wounds into his chest, including one through his heart. And the stab wound actually went in 5 inches. The blade on the knife was 3 inches. So the prosecutor in his closing said that shows an incredible amount of force was used in that stabbing motion. It was hard for everyone to hear in the courtroom, especially for Bob Lee's family. That his children were sitting there, his brother, his father, and at one point some of them were crying and had to get up and leave the courtroom. But the prosecution really tried to wrap up their case, showing their best evidence, reminding the jury of all the witnesses they heard from before this deliberation begins.
Right. And the other big fact that I think is critical in this case and very bad for Momeni is DNA. Bob Lee's DNA is on the blade of the knife, the thing that goes into the body, right? And only Momeni's DNA is on the handle. And they really hammered that home, didn't they?
They did. And so DNA is considered direct evidence. So that is very, very valuable to the prosecution's case. Of course, Nema's trying to say that he wrestled the knife away from Bob. Bob attacked first. He's really banking on this self-defense argument. So that's what the prosecution focused on today for their closing, trying to pick apart all the times Momeni allegedly lied when he testified in self-defense up on the stand for 3 days.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.